Hello, everybody. Karen here from Quantum Healing with Tina and Karen. So I'm just hopping on a call. We felt called to come in and talk about session stories. I know we weren't going to talk about what we're talking about, but that's definitely one thing we're going to talk about. Wow. And here we like to just roll with it.
It's so unscripted.
And it's so unscripted, obviously. Hello,
Yeah.
Tina. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Please take the lead now.
So we heard from you guys that you really like to hear client session stories. We had a really interesting session that we wanted to talk about. Um, a mom reached out to us because her young 18-year-old son was having a really hard time, really, really super sensitive child, starting in his early years. Like he would see spirits when he was just a toddler. See spirits, talk to spirits, and not all of them were good. Um, he would have night terrors, like things like that were happening, which is very often what we see in clients who are drawn to us for sessions. And most of the time, parents don't know what to do with that. They don't know how to handle it. So what mom did was she prayed for all of that to shut down his sight and his ability to see, because also like he wouldn't tell her what the spirits were saying to him because they threatened him that he wasn't allowed to tell anybody or they would hurt him or they would hurt others. So he couldn't even talk to them about what they were saying to him. So she prayed for that ability to see and hear to be shut down. And for the most part, it was. So he stopped being able to see them, although they were still influencing him in other ways. So up until about 12, he was doing okay. I mean, he seemed to be happy, well-adjusted child, and then slowly things started to change, and he became more withdrawn, more isolated. There was also like a big move, so they moved from one place to another, which can be
Stabilize.
hard,
Hmm.
huh?
Destabilize. Like,
Destabilized, yeah. Especially for a child that really loves routine, because he was also diagnosed late, like I think she said 10th or 11th grade, he was diagnosed as on the spectrum.
okay. Yeah.
Um, so, when you're on the spectrum, you like routine. So any kind of change can be a really big deal. So that was a really big deal. And also the house that they were in at the time, there was a little boy around at the same age that had killed himself in the home because I think she said that he was mad at his dad or or abused by the dad there was something like that going on. So he ended up killing himself in the house. And so when there's a traumatic death like that, often spirits will stay around, stuck in that trauma loop. So it's like they stay in that space. They don't fully cross into onto the other side and they stay in that space. And also, if there's no clearing work done on an environment like that, it's still holding the energy of that traumatic event and all the other things that happen leading up to that. So it's holding all of that trauma energy that they're moving into and then absorbing, so the whole family, not just sensitive Jay, but the whole family is like immersed in this energy. Um, so that happened, and then at some point they moved out of there. But he really started to isolate himself. He was super uncomfortable to go outside. He said it would actually make him sick to go outside. He became paranoid about others. He felt really alone. He also said that his family was like part of some kind of simulation and didn't even exist. Um, he was cutting himself, pulling his eyelashes. He had no desire to work or go to school. He just really just ate, slept, barely interacted with family, and stayed in his room most of the time. So it was a pretty pretty desperate situation. He used to love to draw, but mom said art kind of became a demon for him because, when we express through art, we're expressing what's in the subconscious. So if he is being harassed by entities, that's definitely going to come through. So he would draw pictures of himself in a casket, or mom said one time he drew this big um like painting of this like dark being with red eyes that he drew and like put up in his room, and the whole family was like down by it. So it was really dark. He stayed in the dark all the time. He couldn't brush his teeth or get a shower. It would actually make him sick to do so, which is what these entities can do. If like they don't want you to do something, they can physically make you feel ill to keep you from
Mm-hmm.
doing it. And their goal with that is just really being to suppress, to isolate, to just make you miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so because this is so difficult for a child to understand really what's happening to him, he would have mom watch movies that would explain it. So like he had her watch like the Insidious movies.
Right down our alley.
Right down. I know Karen and I watched that and we're like, that's us. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so so we did a remote spirit release session for him. He was there, he was present for it. He was very receptive, and we saw a lot of different things. So first of all, when we met with them for the first time on Zoom, you could just feel and hear the amount of energy that was surrounding both mom and Jay, right? Like they were there together, and the amount of energy was it was so much. Like you
You
could
could hear
just,
the like background noise, like a
yeah,
static
a
background noise
static.
type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, which is indicative of like energy surrounding someone. So there was a lot of energy surrounding them both. And, in talking to them, it seemed like they were definitely part of a bloodline of psychics, people that have gifts of seeing spirit, seeing into the other side. And in our modern day, like we just become disconnected from that. We don't know what to do with it, or we don't know how to use it. Nobody teaches us. So it's just kind of like an open door, you know, for these entities to come and go, and then nobody knows what to do with that. So there's no education,
Right.
and you're just kind of like left at the whim of whatever is happening energetically that you can't really see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there was a lot just in talking to them and getting to know like some of the family history and stuff like that. And then for the session, there was a lot going on. So I'm just gonna like go over the notes a little bit. But do you want to add anything to that?
Um, I I was a little skeptical myself about like how that was going to go about. It was really hard, like me, going in to read somebody's energies, usually like it really depends. It's a gamble sometimes of what information is going to come through. Will any information come through? Uh,
There's always
so
that fear, right? That you're not going to get anything.
yeah, and you really want to help them,
Yeah.
not just them, but I really wanted something to happen, like a miracle for them.
No, we really did set that intention for a miracle to happen.
Yeah, because it was so hard. Like his affect was just very like
Black.
so hard. Like there's a huge wall in between, and just trying to get like any, communication was almost like pulling teeth. I just felt like, oh my God, like how are we gonna help this poor guy? Like as if he was stuck behind something, or there
Mm.
was just so much in between us two. So I was like, okay, we're just gonna have to hope for something. Um, but yeah, we definitely set that intention beforehand to help this family. They were I really liked the mom. I thought like as we were communicating and she was talking about her son, but then there was a lot going on with her. and
Hmm.
her psychic abilities and her like things that have happened in her life that she was like, oh yeah, that does, we did experience that and I do see things, or I don't know what she said exactly, but there was a lot of those things that aren't necessarily normal to people, but she was experiencing a lot of those from childhood. So she was surrounded by like these psychic abilities and being around people with psychic abilities too. So it was a generational thing. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting to as this case study. Um, but yeah, I was just really hoping to at least chip the wall to get the ball rolling for
Hmm.
him. That was really all my intention was really to chip that wall.
Yeah. So we saw a lot of different things. Well, we opened like the opening scene was him in a dark room with this tiny little light on, right? And there was this trickster clown being there and this big shadow masculine. And there was also like this bag of degraded human souls. And they seem to be implanted into his field by this, I think the trickster clown being brought in this bag of degraded souls. And there were eight of them here in his field. So eight degraded human beings in his field placed here to bring his energy down. And one of those actually ended up being his cousin that died previously. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, there were some strange things around that death, right? How did the cousin die again?
Was he murdered
I think he was
or
murdered.
manslaughter or something
Yeah,
something like he was shot
yeah.
rando. I don't know if it was random.
He was
I
young.
really
He
don't.
was the same age as
Same age.
Jay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the cousin, Earthbound, attached to him, plus these others there as well. So they're degrading his energy. Um, plus the trickster clown and this big shadow masculine being. Um, and we saw that they entered through the dream state. There was like an opening in the dream state. Uh, this big, like, dimensional portal that opened into his subconscious. There was actually three of them, three open portals into his subconscious. Yeah, so that was pretty wild. We spent a bit of time on like figuring that out, taking the souls into a healing place and clearing those entities, shutting down the portals. Then we saw that there was another entity there that was related to technology. There was also an avatar that wasn't necessarily fully functional, but it was being built, it was present. So that was also disconnecting him more. So we had to clear those contracts with the technology. His crown was wide open. And because his crown was so wide open, it was very easy for him to exit. So he was barely ever really in the body at all. He was mostly outside the body, right?
Yeah, and we've seen that too. Like you said, when you've done research on people in the spectrum that they experience themselves outside the body or they're, like not in. So
It's so interesting how he came to us because, yeah, the research into autism kind of led this case to us, I think, because of the telepathy tapes that came out and yeah, and just some information that was kind of like flooding in about autism and what's really happening. And the root of it really seems to be, of course, there are many different factors, but a lot of it is due to spiritual attack. So these children have explained that when they are, in fits of rage or unable to speak, or even like staring off into space, the behaviors that they're exhibiting are because they are under spiritual attack. And there's no one there to protect them because they can't even really express what is happening to them. So what starts to happen over time is that they don't They just leave the body.
Mm-hmm.
They don't anchor into the body because they're under attack all the time. So, yes, that's one of the things that the kids have expressed is that they're not even aware that they have a body at all. That's why they need someone to like really ground them, like physically help them use the devices to speak and that kind of stuff.
Sorry, I
Um,
just shouldn't have pressed enter. That was a reminder. Ignore that.
um, yeah, to like they need somebody to physically ground and help them use the devices to speak. I don't think we talked about autism yet on YouTube, have we?
I think we've called ourselves.
We call ourselves autistic. Yeah, we're definitely on the spectrum. Um,
No, I don't feel like we've sat down to really talk about it.
like
Like what
had a
you've
full
researched.
video.
Mm-mm,
Yeah. Well,
mm-mm.
I
That's
came
something I would like to talk about.
Yeah, I think that really kind of blends into what we're talking about today. So I'm just going to make a note. We'll finish talking about Jay's session and then I'll go into that research.
Okay.
So, so we saw that his crown is wide open. He's barely ever in the body, and that's why he's over here in this dark room with barely a light on because it's too intense for him to be in the body. Because these entities are also taking up all this space in his body. So of course he doesn't want to be in it.
Right.
Right. So that's also what's contributing to this lack of affect, this flatness, because the body is being occupied by the entities and not him.
Yeah, totally.
So then we go into find that so we see with this case and with a lot of autistic cases is that really everyone, there's a lot of splitting.
Mm-hmm.
So the mind, the soul gets fractured into all these different parts. So we see here that there's a 9-year-old part that is feeling fearful and uncomfortable. He's being attacked in his dreams and he splits off. So we also see at that time that there's a lot of other single digit parts that have split off, and there are some teenager parts that are split off. So, and this is what makes him easy to withdraw and isolate himself. Because of all this splitting, he's not feeling whole. He's feeling very scattered and confused and just, you know,
Overwhelmed, probably.
overwhelmed. Yes, overwhelmed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I felt like he just didn't, after you're so far gone into it, like you just don't know what to do, that what he's in at that time is normal for him. And it's like a point of no return almost, felt like.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, where to begin, pretty much.
Right. Right. And then so we see all these split parts. We take them to a healing place, and then we come across the earthbound boy that had shot himself in the house. So he has two earthbound souls that are attached to him that were shot. And this one is causing like pain in the head. Um,
Did he have
so
that? Or it's just something I was feeling in myself? Because I was getting physical
you were
things
getting,
happening.
yeah, you were getting a lot of physical pain. I think leading up to the session, remember leading up to the session, he was getting a lot of physical issues
Oh,
that started
yeah.
to
Start
bubble
to
up.
ramp up, which we have to
Right.
talk about.
Which we have to talk about. Okay, let me make that note. Um, where were we? Oh, the little boy.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that was causing pain in the head. And what we saw was that this little boy didn't shoot himself at the behest of his own hand. There was a really high level dark force entity involved in pushing him in that
Yeah,
direction to do so, driving him to mania and
yeah,
inducing these feelings of rage and anger in his body where he couldn't even feel his feet. Like he was barely in the body because of the amount of rage that he was feeling. Yeah. Um,
Right. So it begs the question, just for people like, do we really have free will? I know we've talked about this, but to bring that up again,
mhm.
if free will is really ours in at that point, in a
Right,
circumstance like that.
right, right. And until you really become conscious of what is driving you, what is influencing your behavior, like you really don't have any choice. It could be an entity that is driving you, and you don't even know,
Hmm.
you know? So that's why it's always important to ask those questions. Like, is this really my thought? Where is this thought coming from? Where's this impulse coming from? Because that's one of the ways it's these impulses like addictive behavior and anything that is going to drive you to do something that's not good for you could be induced by an entity.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of willpower to push back against that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for a 9-year-old little boy, I mean, he just doesn't have it. There's no chance at that point. So this entity, this earthbound soul was entangled around the neck and lower thoracic spine, um, and barely had any light left in him at all. It was really sad. So we took him into a healing space and then finished up. This is just the outer etheric field. This is just the outer field.
Right.
And we saw that there was like all this junk mail, what you described as junk mail in his outer etheric. What was that like seeing that? Is that the first time you ever saw that before?
Where I coined it as junk mail. Yeah. I felt like there's just like if you could have just imagined a space and there's just floaters around that mean nothing. Just shit in the wind in the wind. Like, there's nothing. It was filling up space, but they were meaningless.
Mhm. Yeah. But it had something to, it was related to technology.
Oh, well, in that case, then in this context, yeah, it was just like fillers or like cat like when you I think I brought up the word catch. Is that right? I think I
Hmm.
did. Yeah. It was just kind of like that kind of,
Like accumulated energy from being online.
yeah,
Yeah.
stuck here. But it was really just like floating energy of nothing.
Hmm. And how would that affect someone?
For me, it's either like foggy or spacey, like
Hmm.
which which described him to a T, I find. Like very spacey, like not so disconnected,
Yeah.
completely disconnected. And so
Yeah.
being lost in a space of like that kind of like technology, for sure. I mean, technology, when you think of it, it's not there's no motion. It's not awake.
Right. It's really like a dead energy. Like when you feel
Yeah,
into
that's a
it,
good way
it
to
just
put it.
feels
Yeah.
so empty and dead, like a dead energy.
Yeah.
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 Stagnant, like
Stagnant.
really stagnant. Yeah. His
Hmm.
grounding was like 18%, just so low,
Yeah, that's really low.
like barely in the body at all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we see that there's another trickster clown being, which is um increasing the criticism of others or making him feel criticized by others and isolating him from the family. It was ported into the throat and the solar plexus. Um, yeah, so that was clear. Then we go into like generational stuff and see that
Have
there's
we
a,
moved along in the protocol? Sorry.
yeah,
Okay, we did
yeah,
move.
we did move. Yeah.
Okay. I know sometimes I find like the outer etheric is usually very revealing. It usually is the biggest piece, and
Yeah.
then we could go further in the protocol, but yeah.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time there because we ask for the most important things to come forward first. So I think that's why a lot comes through there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we see that on his paternal side, three generations back, great grandfather. There was some kind of curse due to money and an affair, which
Was
created,
confirmed. Was that confirmed-ish?
yeah. Yeah, what did mom say about that? Do you
I
remember?
think I don't know if she like fully like confirmed that fact, but definitely something along the lines of, because I wasn't even sure myself, but I'm like, it feels very much like that kind of energy where it's a little shady.
Oh, he owned a business, she said. He owned a
Mm,
business, like a really popular business.
that's right.
Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah. And so what you saw is this, it created this strong psychic attack that shook through the generations, that was like creating this inexplicable anger and rage inside, this like just feeling of aggravation that was stored in the cellular memory.
I still
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I don't talk like that in real life, people.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was on the dad side. And then mom's side, again, the what you saw was this furry old web of energy
Gross.
where the veil was so thin that there was no boundary between them and
Mm.
the other side. There's no boundary there. So it's just like flowing back and forth.
Yeah, it's almost like the portal is here. Like you are the
You are the
portal.
portal.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And there were a lot of non-beneficial energies, of course, taking advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
So mom needing to learn how to create energetic boundaries. Yeah. So then that paternal side is coming in, influencing, maternal side's also influencing, and then just adding to what he's already dealing with, what he's literally coming in with. That's what he's coming in with already. And then we see that it's the same in the house. Like the energy is just open and kind of free flowing, and there's open portals and lack of boundary. I didn't write a lot down about that, so I don't know if you have anything from memory about the house, but I thought it was interesting that it was kind of the same as mom's field, like and how it was like open and free flowing like that, with the energy coming in and in.
Yeah, I don't recall.
Mhm. Yeah. So then we go to past life where we see grandma has this hex on her and she's carrying weight on her shoulders. Do you remember that?
Keep going.
That's all I wrote down.
Shoot. Sick.
Grandma,
On the mom's.
I think so, mom's side. No, past life grandma. This is a past life
Okay.
grandma who's carrying a weight on her shoulders, who then passes that weight down the generations. I don't think we spent too much time on that because I didn't write a lot down, but this is also how past life generational stuff can bleed through and affect us as well.
Yeah. And it just compounds on top of the generational line.
Yeah.
So it's like almost like you're getting hit at the intersection of things.
Right. So this is what, like, when people come to us and, they just feel so overwhelmed and anxious and depressed. And what we try to explain to them is like, you are the center node in this big cosmic web of energy that is all flowing into you right here and right now for you to start pulling those threads and clearing that energy. If you are the one, you are the one. You're the one that needs to do that to clear all of this up. If that is your goal, to exit, to not do this again, to not come back here, we need to really start cleaning that up. And that's why everything feels so overwhelming. It's not just this lifetime stuff, it's lifetimes and generations and,
Parallel. Yeah.
multi-dimensional things on top of things. And it's all feeding into you, like
Mm-hmm.
as the center of that web.
Yeah. Everything's going to be, I like the way that I see it, especially if they have that intention or the awareness of, I want to get out of here. or this is not my home and I need to get out,
Like
then the
last
whole,
life. Yeah.
yeah, then the whole thing just illuminates inside and it highlights everything. So you could either be overwhelmed by it and frozen in a state of frozen, or you take that as the opportunity to pull and heal.
Yeah.
It's either one, it leaves you, this place leaves you at a fork all the time. What am I going to do with it?
Are you going to be a
Get,
victim or are you
yeah,
going to take it as an opportunity?
1,000,000%.
Yeah, that's always the choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to bring in some kind of levity into this situation, these sessions can feel so dense and heavy and dark sometimes. When we get to past lives, I'm like, let's see a past life where, he's empowered, he feels free, he feels good. Let's give him,
I
because
know when you
sometimes
bring that
people
up and I'm like,
people just need that sometimes.
I know. I'm like, this is so depressing.
Yeah. Yeah, so we saw a life where he was happy, it was easy, joyful. He sees the bright side of things. He was the son of a farmer. It was a simple life. His
Mm.
mother was a homemaker, and he loved to build and create and spend time in nature and give life a chance. So that was really beautiful to connect with and bring that energy in for him. Because just as much as we have to like clean up things up, we can also access those energies that are good for us, that will be beneficial for us, that are also in that web. And we can pull them in and connect with them and bring in that energy that's going to help propel us and heal us. Yeah. Okay, so that's pretty much it. We cleared a lot of negative contracts and thought forms and things like that. We check in on the earthbound souls. The cousin is feeling a sense of relief. The little boy, the 9-year-old who shot himself, was also feeling peaceful. And of course, we cleared him of that entity and he was reintegrating into his whole self. Um, so they did well. We're crossed over. The soul. Percentage was really low to start with. It was only like 20%. So we got that up into the 90s. And we saw that when we do a session like this, we're looking at what makes this person vulnerable to negative entity attacks and attachments. And we saw here that it's really his sensitivity is the reason why he's attacked, which here we go, we kind of work into this is why children with autism are attacked. They're attacked because of their sensitivity. They're attacked because of their connection to spirit. That's, and there's a bloodline aspect to this as well. There are certain bloodlines here that are being attacked. And what's interesting is that it seems to be mostly like the statistics. I wrote like a whole post on this that I shared with group. But from memory, the statistics show that the firstborn sons have the highest incidence of autism. So if you think
Is
about,
mine?
huh,
Is my son?
what? Autistic?
Yeah,
I don't know. Is he?
probably.
I don't think, I don't think so. But that's because of the bloodline and the targeting of the the males. Males are being very much targeted by these entities because they want to weaken men and they want to weaken the society. So it's an overall weakening. And I'm just going to bring out my notes on that to see if there's anything interesting that stands out. So I came across this testimony, which is super fascinating. This guy's name is Benjamin Brodie. And he tells his testimony with these incredibly complex layers and parallels to this case, to Jay's case, and to the work that we do with people. And he approaches it from a Christian perspective, but the work is the same. And so it was so fascinating to see it from like with that structured belief system, and how it fits into that or doesn't fit into that. So I'll get back to that in a second, but I just wanted to say that we did this session for Jay on April 25th. And we got a message from his mom today that he is doing really well, like really well. So I'm just going to look at that email and pull some things that she said.
And again, we set the intention for a miracle. And I really just wanted to chip his wall.
Yeah. So yesterday was Mother's Day, and she said last night before bed, he came over to me and gave me a second hug and told me he loves me and happy Mother's Day again. He even made me a card for the first time in many, many years. He went to his father and little sister and hugged them and said, I love you as well. He was very distant towards our youngest, who is 4, but lately he seems to talk with her more and play with her by blowing bubbles for her. Last night he went into our oldest daughter's room to watch her guinea pigs eat watermelon for the first time, and he was very happy about that. My daughter took one of her guinea pigs out, and he called out to come over to him. On May 8th, I told Jay my wishes for Mother's Day, and that was for me, him, his father, and sisters to go out on the 9th, and he said okay. Usually he has this look on his face of uncomfortableness and shakes his head no. He was actually very happy to go. We went to the park after grabbing lunch and dessert, and Jay had more fun at the park than his teen and sister. He got on the swing right away and he smiled with so much happiness and joy. He got on the slides a few times too. He hasn't had the desire to visit the park since he was a young boy. That was amazing, seeing him enjoy being outside and at the park. Jay came out the house once this year for his dental appointment. This was his second time out of the house since October of 24. Usually when we get him home, he's drained from being out and will go upstairs and go to sleep. This day, he stayed with his family and watched TV together. On another day, he took the trash out without being asked to do so. The cough he had went away after his first clearing, and his abdomen and hands cleared up not long after as well. Feels like an out-of-body experience to me to watch him doing these things. We're going to take him and his sisters on an adventure in November when it's more cool outside, and he is so excited. I haven't seen this side of my son in a very long time. Thank you, Tina and Karen, so much for all you have. I'll continue to let you know how he's progressing. And she sent a picture of him at the park smiling on the swing with his sister. And that totally like made me cry reading that because it was just to see that smile is
Oh my God.
like he looks like a completely different person.
Yeah. Like there's life
Yeah.
that, like that disconnect is like that was the contrast of the disconnect where he was smiling and just the color around, like because they're
Yeah.
outdoors and
Yeah.
I was like, wow. Yep. So we got the miracle.
Yeah. I always say that we don't promise miracles, but we always intend for one. Like that's always our intention. And sometimes we get it.
Yeah. That was sweet. Really happy. I love when
Yeah.
they give us feedback like that because sometimes we don't hear back. We don't know. And
Right.
yeah. I think we talked about that case, that extreme case where that young girl, I think she was in her early teens or where she was in a coma.
Mm-hmm.
And the family just really wanted us either, of course, the miracle of her waking up from the coma but we never promised anything like that. It was really just because the aunt had a dream that her soul was taken and in a I think it was in a deep dungeon somewhere. I don't know where,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
but we went to go retrieve her. Even after we had retrieved her, she had movement in her body.
Mhm. Which
So it
meant that the soul was no longer stuck in that dungeon, but it was back in the body.
she was
And I think
intact.
he is now back in the body,
Yeah.
or at least able to take up more space in his body.
Yeah. Slowly.
Yeah, feeling
Get,
more connected to not only himself, but others, you know?
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. Fantastic work.
Yeah. You know, kids can be so receptive. I don't think we've ever had a child that wasn't receptive to the energy work. Adults are a lot trickier because there's so many things that can get in the way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
children are always super receptive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like the older you get, it does get a little more harder. Like there's resistance that can happen and the ego
Hmm.
parts and, all the subpersonality parts that could come in and them attachments too working in on the subconscious. But yeah, I mean, as much as we love to help everybody, like we prefer children and pets because they're more open. We
Yeah.
always ask just for openness. It's really it. In order
Yeah.
for us to gain more information, which is what, people are paying us for, to gain information and to, assist in any healing that we can in that outer layer. Yeah, we require your openness.
Mm.
Even if the information doesn't resonate or it might trigger you or whatever it is, it's like, don't worry, like as long as you hold the intention that we are coming to retrieve information and to assist you in releasing it, getting rid of it. So at least just to hold that intention, it's not going to be there anymore, at least in this layer.
Yeah. So I think this is a good time to go into activation of symptoms leading into a session. And it's not just sessions, as we kind of saw recently. It's, when you're intending to maybe go to a big gathering, like with other people, like you would say, like a conference of some sort. But let's just talk sessions right now.
Because we
You know,
experience this a lot.
yes, this happens a lot. And sometimes, like in this case, I wanted to do him like right away, like do his session right away because I knew that those entities were going to start acting up and causing problems before the session. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it right away because of scheduling conflicts, and we had to wait a few weeks. So, leading in that week leading into his session, he started to manifest physical symptoms. He had the cough, he had his hands like were turned all red. He had some other things that were on his skin. So that was concerning for mom. There was also like really weird stuff that was manifesting in the home. Like his sister was moved one night in bed, and like real physical manifestations were happening in the home. And that's when I was like, Mom, you really have to like take control of this. Here's the
Protection protocol.
prayers, the
Yeah.
protection prayers to use. She did it. She noticed a little bit of a difference. And I'm like, here's the decree of sovereignty, the notice. Like you're putting these entities on notice. Do this. And then she had no problems. That worked. Um, but yeah, they were having real physical manifestations and real physical symptoms. And this can happen a lot leading up to sessions because the entities know that they're on their way out. So they will do anything they can to try to prevent you from having the session. That includes implanting thoughts that Tina and Karen are evil. That
Yeah,
it
that can be a
does.
lot fuck.
That includes creating physical manifestations in your body that make it really uncomfortable for you to show up for the session because you feel so sick, you don't want to come. So it could be, they give you a flat tire or your technology doesn't work or it's just interference, whatever they can do to interject to make sure that this session doesn't happen because they know they're on their way out, they will try to do. And so that's where it really takes a lot of will to keep
Mm-hmm.
moving forward, to know that you have to show up. You have to show up for yourself. You have to use your willpower to push through,
Yeah,
even when it feels really hard.
yeah.
And sometimes it's not just entities that are creating these issues. A lot of times, what we see is it's unconscious parts of self that don't want to be found out because that's a threat to their existence. So you might have a little child part in there that just is
Or have trust issues or something.
right, that has trust issues, that is scared, that doesn't want to be found, and they can very easily mess with your technology. So know that it's not always entities. Sometimes just memory is stored in our bodies. It's stored in the fascia of our bodies. So when you are leading into a session, say it's a tapping session, a body scan session, or a quantum healing session of any kind, your body might start to bring up the memory of that, of what's ready to come up. It's like the next layer of energy that's ready to come up. So the memory starts rising up in your body, and it might feel like, oh, my belly hurts, or my throat is scratchy, or I have a headache, or I'm just really tired and fatigued, and I really don't feel like going to this session. Like, this is the last thing that
We
I
feel
want
it
to
too.
do.
I just want to point that out too. So do we.
Yeah.
We feel that too. Sometimes I just text in the morning. I'm like, I don't feel good. But I'm just saying it. I'm gonna do it. I'm just saying what's happening right now, what I'm feeling.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so all of these things kind of they start to bubble up and even feel like sometimes people, if it's a really deeply repressed memory, there will be fear
Mm.
that rises up and you don't know why you're feeling fearful about this session, but you feel fear and anxiety in your body and you don't
Yeah,
know why.
yeah.
And we come, we have the session, we find out that there's a repressed memory of sexual abuse. And of course, that's why your body leading into the session is feeling fearful and anxious because you don't even have any conscious recollection of that memory at all, but your body remembers.
Yeah. The resistance, it comes up really strongly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty wild. Like, especially like when we know we have clients that like it happens to them more often than not, where the clients that are working with us more in a long term and they know that we're having like a big session, even a tapping session, sometimes it comes up and they're like, I was gonna cancel. I'm like, okay, so we know it's gonna be a good one. That's how we know it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah.
And by a good one, I mean like they're gonna release something really good today.
Oh, I wanted to say this in the beginning and I totally forgot. And again, we're
Why?
going
Because my opening was so good.
to,
Can you
no, I
edit that?
wanted to make a correction from our last video where we talked about the woman who ejected the snake
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
from her body. And I said that it was her acupuncturist that noticed her spine was completely different and realigned. It was not. It was her
Chiropractor.
chiropractor. Her chiropractor noticed her spine was completely different. I'm gonna have to like make an addendum or something.
It's
um,
okay. Yeah. But yeah, those kind of physical things are pretty incredible. How we have like changes. I mean, yeah, today's miracle that we got from the email for Jay was miraculous and like wow. The proof of it like having from it hasn't even been a month and the big changes that have occurred. And then to have someone like that also, like where they go see their chiropractor who has noticed a significant change. She has a session with us, an energetic removal of a snake, which we are transitioning to Kundalini people. Is that the next topic at hand? Yeah, so removes this humongous snake out that has been taking up space in her field, and then goes to see the chiropractor and tells her that her back is has shifted. Her vertebrae have
Mhm.
physically shifted. Like what?
Yeah. So the really cool thing about these symptoms that arise before a session is that by the end of the session, they're completely gone and cleared from your body for good. So if you can just get yourself there to the session, just show up. You don't have to worry about anything else. All you have to do is show up and know that by the end, it's going to be better and healed and released forever.
Yeah.
Once you release that memory and retrieve your soul part from that memory, whether it's a this life or another life memory or wherever the memory's from, it doesn't matter. You're retrieving that soul part and you're releasing that memory from your body, from your mind, from your soul. You're releasing it, you're clearing it so that you're not carrying it anymore. It's not stored in your cellular memory.
Mm-hmm.
It's released for good. And you don't have to worry about those symptoms anymore. They're now gone. Like that's what spirit release is. That's what quantum healing is. It's not something that you have to keep going at and going at and going at. No, it's like instant release. Are there other layers? Yeah, there's other memories. There's other soul parts. But that one is it's done.
Yep.
So you know that by the end of the session there's relief, which is something to look forward to. So just speaking to our clients that are working with us long term, like if you are feeling that fear come up or that resistance to showing up, just keep reminding yourself that by the end of this, there will be relief. I will feel better.
Yeah.
So that would have been a really great segue into Kundalini, but I'm going to go back to autism for a minute.
Okay.
So I think we should do a whole video on just Kundalini.
Okay.
Yeah. And autism
Is
does
another video too.
it is. So I came across this testimony of Benjamin Brodie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it really speaks to this rise of autism and ADHD and neurodivergence in general because of it's not just a physical thing, but it's a multidimensional thing that's happening. And it speaks to the rise of spiritual attack, like how hard human beings are being attacked and not just attacked, but
Mm-hmm.
recruited to work for these beings. And so how this works and with his testimony, you can see the full picture of it taken at 2 years old by the Draco,
Mm-hmm.
taken to a ritual because these beings are involved in the rituals. They're the ones that showed humans how to do these rituals. So
Mm-hmm.
when we in our minds we like to create these barriers between, SRA and ETs when it's not, it's the same thing. It's all one thing. Um 2-year-old self they take to this occult ritual. They sacrifice a human being and they make him eat the human at 2 years old. There's
Yeah.
some other kind of sexual stuff that goes on there too,
Mm-hmm.
which is just,
Disturbing.
it's so disturbing.
Yeah.
Right. So that's his first introduction. So that's his initiation
Wow.
into this life at
Go
two
big
years
or go
old.
home. What the hell, man?
And it's because he was selected by familiar spirits in the bloodline. So he was
Oh, wow.
selected for this position.
Oh, wow.
The child that is selected has to have a knack for creation, so organic creation, and for technology. Isn't that interesting?
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that started the grooming process and the initiation. Yeah, sexually assaulting him, making him eat the human sacrifice in order to create the first fracture. So fracturing the soul, fracturing the psyche of 2 years old.
And what is the tie-in with the technology and all that stuff? Oh, you're getting there? Okay. Sorry.
They took, so what they were doing was they were taking his humanity. They were taking his
Oh,
humanity and
like to
taking,
disconnect
right,
for
to
the
disconnect
gotcha.
him, right, to
Mm.
disconnect him, making him into a Draco super soldier who participated in the abduction and implantation of other humans. So, because they stripped him of his humanity, it was easy for him to just go and do this to other people.
Okay, so they're like creating a sociopath, pretty much.
Yes. Yes, very
Gotcha.
much so. Um, and what they would also do was trap these celestial energy beings for use empowering their craft and their technologies. So, yeah, he was programmed to be a superior highborn dragon and that gets to eat these monkeys and blow up planets, quote unquote. So as a child, he is unruly. Like he is just rageful and angry, and they can't control him, and the parents have no idea what to do with him because he's just completely out of himself. And this is because, like he said, he could be standing there or sitting there and his body's here, but he's out on a ship somewhere blowing up a planet. So he's literally living life multidimensionally. And this is what I mean when I say that children with autism aren't in the body. They're not just not in the body, but they could be off doing something. And to you, as the observer, their behavior could look totally abnormal and atypical.
Right, right.
It
Mm-hmm.
looks there are many different presentations of this. And as we've seen before, like sometimes it's the grays that are interfering, that are coming into the child's body, and they do the same thing. They take their humanity and they
Mm-hmm.
leave their own essence behind. So it's the
Did we see that?
same agenda. We saw that, yes, in a session.
But you did see it also in a to back it. No? Did you read that somewhere as
This
well?
is probably,
No,
probably
I
my,
because
re-
I feel like they come back to back usually.
yeah. Well, I think this is the story that kind of validates like what we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so when autistic children say like they don't even know that they have a body, it's because they're outside of their body most of the time. And not only outside, but they could be actually working for entities doing mission work. And so I think this relates to a lot of our clients and the patterns that we've seen in especially generationally bloodline families. These same kind of tactics are being used on them, and they might not be diagnosed as autistic, but they certainly have autistic traits,
Right.
which is why we say we have autistic traits. We very much do have autistic traits.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so as a child, he's living two lives, one physical, one non-physical.
Mm-hmm.
So an observer in 3D would witness his physical body shaking and jerking as he was going out on these missions in the middle of the day.
Mm-hmm. So he's like on autopilot during the day while he's doing these mission work things, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Just
It's just a body, an empty shell there, which is like what we saw with Jay, like you were saying, like he's not there. Like
right.
literally not there. And in contrast to the picture mom sent us of you could see like his life is back, his life force is back. He's back in the
He was
body.
there.
He was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so the parents had a really difficult time with this child. And then in his 20s, he was saved by Jesus. He had a deliverance. But then, the deliverance doesn't just end it like, and everything goes away. Once you get rid of the entities and familiar bloodline spirits and all of those things, the Draco, then he has to heal and has to learn from scratch how to interact with humans again.
Wow.
Because
As
he
a
does
human.
as a human.
As a human. Like removing the layers that have been like animating him.
Yeah.
Wow.
And learning to connect with other human beings, like learning to feel empathy again, because they were just like he described them like just as monkeys to him, like they would eat humans and implant and abduct humans.
Would
So
he
he,
see it as humans, or he would see it like they would block also his perception of what he's doing? Did he say that?
as far as he said, he knew they were humans. Yeah,
Okay.
because at 2 years old they
Oh,
started
they
making
already
him eat
desensitized
humans.
him.
They desensitized them. Exactly. Yeah,
Like just like how we eat meat ourselves.
exactly. Exactly. So he has to learn from scratch how to interact with humans for the very first time. And so that was his story in a nutshell. He worked with Dan Duval, who does very similar work to Karen and I, like I was saying earlier, but with the Christian belief structure. But
Mhm.
he's amazing. Like he's done some really awesome interviews and he does, like, he talks about the dissociated soul parts and the sub parts and all that stuff and how and rescues them and like how it all interacts. Like he does similar work and which is amazing to see like somebody else doing that because it's not
We should
often that
chat
you
with
see
him.
that. Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah. So there's a two-part interview with him. And then we come into the telepathy tapes, which is really big right now, right? Like it's really cool to hear how it's hitting the mainstream. Like telepathy in autistic children is becoming normalized to some extent. Um, but this interview that I'm talking about is it's not part of the telepathy tapes, but it's similar thing. It's a teacher who was interviewed who started making a telepathic connection with one of her students,
Mm-hmm.
a young boy. And she realized he was telepathic, he realized she was telepathic, and so then they just had this open communication with each other.
How did they start that?
I don't remember exactly, um, but he started explaining to her what was happening to him. So he was explaining that his behavior issues, like crying and screaming, were him being attacked by demons. Like he told her that. He told the teacher about his gifts of telekinesis, of telepathy, timeline manipulation, past and future events. He could track these events and make actual changes. He could make things happen. Like that was his specialty. Yeah. He could manipulate electronics and make changes in smartphones. Like she tells a story of how he like manipulated her phone one day just with his mind.
Wow.
Yeah, he could see angels, demons, and he said that these kids will be targeted because of their light, their sight, because they can see. Yeah. So,
I have a question about um are they born like this, or could this happen to somebody, let's say, who has an injury from a
Well, that's part of it.
like to
I think
create more
they're
sensitivity so that they could use them, or like,
I think they are born with the ability, with because they're born into these bloodlines, they're already born with the ability. And then the things, what do we always say about them? They force the soul out of the body.
eject. Yeah.
Eject. It's like an eject button.
So it just makes it easier.
Makes it easier.
Okay. So they're already primed because they're because of the soul that's coming in. That's
Yes.
already like the pre, what do you call it? I have no words, but like they're already have that program, and then they get one of those, they get injured, and therefore, whoop, out.
Because they're already so sensitive. Like the soul just cannot exist in the body that is that is so poisoned with toxicity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's like eject, it's already so hard to be in a human physical body to begin with. Then you add all these toxins on top of it. And it's like, boop, I'm out.
Yeah, there's multiple factors.
Yeah, which we see because this leads into that session we had with the autistic kid, the
Mm-hmm.
child that showed up for a session with his neighbor from 20 years ago. Like it was wild.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah,
Right. Wow. Yeah. Wow. I forgot about that one.
yeah. So what he says here is these children will be targeted because of their sight. And what was the first thing we said about Jay? He could see entities, he could see and communicate with spirits as a toddler. So, of course, they know before they even get in the body who's coming in. So they start targeting them right away. Like we've seen that
Right.
even pre-birth, like
Right.
as they're coming in, they get targeted, or while they're in mama's womb, they're targeted.
Right. And mom
It's
had no borders.
mom had no borders.
So the protection already there is gone.
Right.
Not even her fault. It's just what it is. That unconsciousness of it. That,
Just not knowing. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, what do we see in this case? We see that he has rageful fits of anger, this dismissive attitude, and this boastful ego. And we see that that's
Mm-hmm.
coming in to Jay's through the father's side, through this paternal curse that comes down. It's the rage, the anger, the aggravation that you were feeling in the cellular memory. So that's another factor that feeds into it.
Yeah. This is just one case. So, if we dig into other cases just to see what they're born into on top of like what they've already been stamped with their pre-programming.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of wild to see.
Mm-hmm. This boy says that he is God's messenger. He's visited by Jesus in desperate times, as young as 3 years old. He hunts demons and sends them to God, and he ends up getting attachments doing so. He said that children like him are spiritually traumatized with no help because they can't communicate what is happening. They are targets, and they want us to know that their behavior is coming from spiritual attacks. They say they are targeted before they were born via the DNA.
Mm.
And they want people to start asking questions like, what is autism? Why is it a spectrum? They say it is intentional brain damage and the injections are weapons. So they damage the brain intentionally. Yeah. I'm getting hit now.
Yeah, but
Um, whew,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's just one specific target. And then you have there's so many people who are targeted.
Yeah.
So many.
So this teacher that started communicating with the child, she took it to the principal and to share.
Mhm. Yeah, good. Okay.
And the principal was like, "Oh yeah, I have a list of all the kids that are telepathic." And she was fired the next day.
Wow. That's some crazy, like high ranking mob shit. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, so he was saying that bad people don't want this out there. Some of these children are using their gifts to fight for humanity behind the scenes. So in this case, we see how this kid is, at least from what he's saying, that he's fighting for the light or he's fighting for good. He's being targeted by the darkness, by the demons, but he is trying his best to fight for good. Whereas in other cases, you can see that they're hijacked by the darkness and used by the darkness.
Right.
Um, so this child wants people, he says that God took his broken children and made an army. God is pure love, and some people can't reach it. He wants you to presume that the children are competent and know that they're aware. The families need respite care. Share your own gifts with them and help them develop new skills. Give them choices. He says there's always an energetic exchange with them, which I thought was an interesting statement because we've had clients who were teachers of autistic children and they couldn't do it anymore because they were so drained after work every day that they couldn't. They had to either leave the profession or, do something else because the energy they were expending and taking care of the kids was a lot. It was just too much and they were getting attacked and all kinds of weird stuff was happening. So I think that there is some kind of exchange and you don't know what's happening with that child if they're a Draco super soldier or they're working for God's army. You don't know. So um
Yeah, like when we think about society now, how far we are from even being able to tell, like they're just dots. Like, sorry, but they're so disconnected that you wouldn't even think it's not even a natural instinct to be like, well, that child is working for God and that child is overtaken by a draconian and that child is, like we
I mean,
don't
these aren't
have,
questions that people are
yeah,
asking, right?
we're so far and
It's
disconnected
just like that's a
as a
bad
human.
child because of their behavior or
Yeah,
whatever.
they're just autistic, so they're mentally retarded and that's it. The end.
Right,
Whereas it's like they're just fighting a silent battle inside and we have no idea why or what's the drive behind it.
right. So all of this really made me reflect, like, not just on autism, because the rise of autism is at an alarming rate. They say it's going to be like 1 in 2 in just a few years.
I'm
Like
sure it's
half,
one in one.
that's half of the population. Half.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make it acceptable and it's not like this is not acceptable because what's happening to them is evil, like it's not right. And if if we're honest, like many of us who reflect back on our lives can see similar patterns that have played out, in ourselves, in our siblings, um maybe cousins or friends that we knew, we could see the same patterns and the same symptoms of ADHD, autism, neurodivergence, and all of its forms, which is like cool to be neurodivergent now. If you're neurotypical, it's not cool to be neurotypical anymore. Everybody has to have something
Like a quirk.
that makes them different, right? It's like cool to be different. Yeah, quirky or yeah, just not typical. Um, Yeah, and nobody is asking these questions of like what's really happening with them
No.
on a
Yeah.
spiritual level.
Yeah, right. Well, that's it. That's where the disconnect is. It's not even, they're so far behind.
Yeah.
Everything feels so far behind.
Yeah. I don't have my notes here on, and it what it is in essence is a hybridization program with these other entities, with whether it's the Draco or the Greys or whoever is behind that specific child, the attacks on that specific child. It's ultimately a hybridization program so that these entities can enter into the bodies because they cannot enter into an intact human form. There's the
Like in
vibration,
the sense of like fully possessing.
right? Full possession, right? They can't
Yeah.
fully possess.
That's why we keep stressing like healing work. So you really fully occupy your body and know yourself.
So after I did that, like had those insights and saw those interviews, we had a session with a client who like it was interesting because as soon as we met with her, I could tell something was off. And I wasn't sure exactly what it was, but when we had our break, I was hearing the word earthbound. There's an earthbound here. We were scheduled for a body scan session. And um, during the session, we found that there was an earthbound present, and it was, I don't even know how to explain that. How do you explain that?
I don't even know who you're talking about.
I'm talking about the autistic child that showed up, who
Oh,
was a neighbor.
oh right.
So in the 90s,
Yeah. Or like, okay.
in the 90s, she lived upstairs or downstairs from a young child. I think it was like 3 or 5. The boy was autistic. They lived there for a few years. She moved away, never saw him again. Comes into this session. The boy shows up and he shows us a lifetime where he was trapped by a dark force entity. He was hit over the head and killed and then trapped. So out of the body, then trapped by the dark force entity
Mm-hmm.
in this space. And he was showing us how this life was still affecting him now. And it was interesting because when she was first tuning in to the sensation, it was in her head in the temporal lobe, and she was being shown like a green liquid injection, as in
Mm-hmm.
the shots.
Mm-hmm.
So he was showing us how these toxins were affecting the brain,
That's crazy.
and it was affecting him in that specific area because of that injury that he had in
Mm-hmm.
that life, because that was a vulnerability point. The temporal lobe, I don't have my notes here, but it's it's all related to the symptoms of autism. Where my notes are on that. Oh, here. Yeah, he showed us that the previous head injury being stuck in time as an earthbound soul had caused brain damage and contributed to his symptoms of autism in this lifetime, plus then the injections on top of that added to the toxicity of the brain. This was a really interesting, fascinating case because he was being targeted so hard that it took all three of us to hold the space to keep those dark, malevolent beings back from targeting him. Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah, she was
I
like,
mean, like I know what you're talking about, but it must have been completely heavy that we were, like you said, it took us to hold it.
yeah, we had to hold them back so he could cross through the portal because
Oh yeah.
they were still trying to target him.
Was she having any physical things happening to her in it? Or I don't remember like how it was coming about. Was this a
Well,
QBS?
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. And we were showing him how to find his light
Mm-hmm.
to heal from the previous trauma and injuries. She saw him transform into a large, glowing, beautiful, angelic like being, and he was ready to move on. But then, as soon as we went to move him on, he was targeted by these multiple high level malevolent beings that showed
Mm-hmm.
up with the intention to prevent this and not allow his exit. So,
Right. No,
yeah.
yeah. I know I'm getting a visual of what that felt like and looked like at the time that we were holding that space. It just looks like a big an isolated bubble like in black space and we're just like trying to contain it, like preventing that energy from coming through.
Mhm. Yeah, and it was really like time stood still. So maybe that was
Yeah.
like the time bubble we were in.
Yeah, like it was
Yeah,
I'm just seeing that just holding it intact, like try really making like a force or something between us all so that it can't crack or
right. And then suddenly there was like, she let out this like sigh of relief
mm,
and like tears started flowing down. You could just tell that it was like he made it, you know?
yeah.
So yeah, that was crazy because after the session we talked about like, because that day, I think, was it that day or the day before, I had made the post about Benjamin Brodie in our group.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There is a sink right there. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. So I asked him during the session if he was the one guiding me to that information. He said yes, and others. There are other children that need our help too. What's even more interesting, right above my post, someone else posted a video from Stargate season 1, episode 8 from 1997, which is the year before these two met. So the year before M met with the boy. And in the clip, a male with the same name as this earthbound and two women were speaking about self-replicating nanotechnology in 1997.
Same name. That was crazy too.
Same name.
Another sink.
Yes. So M sent me this message the day after her session. She said, during last night, I woke up with the following thought, which I needed to share. The blogger that I watched, due to censorship, made up a word for getting the jab, which he's been using for years. And it's the child's name. It includes the child's name from the session. So she said,
Wow.
my sense is that he wanted me to relay that there's something about autism and being jabbed.
Wow. This place is so fucking weird, man.
Yeah, and it confirmed the child from the podcast with the teacher who telepathically told her that the jabs are weapons and they cause intentional brain damage.
I don't know how much more you have to repeat that. I guess you got to keep
You
repeating
got
it
to
till it
keep
breaks the
repeating it.
programming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Till it breaks that programming. I mean, I understand that programming. I was programmed. But like, yeah.
Oh God, we're probably gonna get censored for this video. Um,
Yeah. Or you could join our Patreon and watch it.
we don't have a Patreon.
But let us know if you want us to open one. Because then we could say whatever the hell we want.
Yeah, or something like that. Patreon or something. So the schedule is now at 72 things before the age of 18. 72.
72 darts.
72 darts in infants and toddlers. And so,
Gosh.
yeah, in session, we saw the lime green needle being pointed directly at the head, being surrounded by dark gray metallic energy, which is the nano. So that was
Right.
symbolic of the injection of the heavy metals and the nano and the directly into the brain because it passes the blood-brain barrier. It's
Right.
known that.
Right. Mhm.
And it accumulates in parts of the body that have previous injuries and trauma. So he was showing us exactly what had happened to him, that the jabs accumulated around the previous past life brain injury.
Wow.
Yeah. She found out later that he's still alive. I think he was 30, 30 still alive. So it would, I mean, we'll never know how this session, what effect this session had on him, but it was just fascinating how he came to us. Like, and that had nothing to do with her. Like, he just kind of like
He took
butted
advantage of
himself.
a session.
Yeah, took advantage of a session.
But
But he kind of brought us
it
all a
helps.
bigger awareness at the
Yeah,
same
exactly.
time.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so it's such a big awareness. And it's kind of, it's obvious for us, but it's not obvious for everybody, you know? Because even the past life, how we label it past life, it's not technically true that it's in the past. It's all happening simultaneously. So this past life aspect of him that is in the cave with this head injury being trapped there by this dark entity is happening right now. So imagine if there was a part of you that that was happening to, how would that be affecting you in the here and now? You know, it's the same
Right.
thing we do
It's
with
the
all
same.
of our clients, retrieving these parts, clearing the entities, and bringing us back into wholeness.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
yeah, this is how like past lives can still be affecting the current life, and why consciousness exploration can help and heal those issues that are arising in the here and now. So, by healing that multidimensional aspect of self, that healing crosses over into the current life.
Yeah, it's so important to have a multidimensional approach. So important.
Yeah,
You have to approach it that way. There's no other way.
there's no other way.
No.
So the area of the brain that was being targeted is the temporal lobe. So what
Mm-hmm.
happens if the temporal lobe is damaged? Difficulty hearing or speaking, memory loss, difficulty organizing verbal material. So again, speaking,
Yeah.
difficulty comprehending language, difficulty paying attention,
Yeah.
especially to auditory or visual input. So
Mm-hmm.
they're all symptoms of autism.
Yeah.
It also helps us to interpret
Right.
emotions and reactions of others, which is known to be a challenge in autism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So some statistics on autism. In the 1970s, the rate of autism was 4 to 5 in every 10,000 people.
Okay.
4 to 5 in every 10,000 people. In 50 years, we went from that to 1 in 36. 1 in 36.
And that's just diagnosed.
Yes, that's diagnosed.
That's just diagnosed.
That's just diagnosed.
This is
Yeah.
present time?
Yeah.
1 in 36 right now? Wow.
That's up from 1 in 44 only 2 years ago.
It's baffling.
Yeah. That's 317% higher than in the year 2000.
I didn't know any autistic people growing up. I mean, like it was, I didn't know. I mean, like now that I look back, I'm like, definitely that guy was on the spectrum. But even me, not diagnosed. So, I mean, yeah, for sure there was a spectrum of things, but not to the point where, I didn't know any nonverbal or anyone who was neurodivergent, obviously neurodivergent.
Obviously.
Yeah, like obvious.
Yeah,
It
same.
wasn't a thing.
Right.
We
It's a
had a
thing
couple,
now.
I had like one, maybe like one that had Down syndrome. I remember that in elementary school, one. But
Not autism.
no,
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 I didn't either.
right.
So what is then causing this drastic increase? Could it be the bioweapons disguised as vaccines? Could it be that they are ritually started in the first hours of life? First hours, combined with the food, air, water, home environment poison. Studies are done that have found over 200 chemicals in the umbilical cord alone. 200.
Gosh.
So adding more chemical cocktails and injected neural networks on top of that into the physical body, and then add increasing spiritual targeting of the bloodlines. And no wonder these children are having such a hard time. So
Jeez.
here's the stat. The boys are 4 times more likely to be diagnosed than girls. I think part of that is that girls are better at masking the
Oh yeah, you
symptoms.
learn that very easily, like quickly.
Yeah, girls are better at masking, but I still think that there's a targeting of boys because maybe they want to destabilize society by taking out that protective masculine energy, while also
Hmm.
forming this astral army for themselves.
Well, given that, like they're sensitive, we need more sensitive men. And so of course they want to take that down.
Yeah.
Easy targets.
Right. And then they're using torture, abuse, and sex magic to program the humanity out of them.
Gosh.
Brodie speaks to the orchestrated targeting of boys in certain bloodline families. Our own experience in sessions has shown that degraded entities such as the Greys pass through a child's body, leaving behind their own essence and taking the humanity from the child. And this is observed during staring episodes where they kind of just zone out.
Hmm.
40% are nonverbal.
Wow. I didn't know that statistic. I didn't know it was that much.
It's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
44% have average or higher than average intellectual ability, and 31% have intellectual disability.
That's me.
So, why is being nonverbal important for the dark ones? It's because so that these children can't communicate
You
what is
can't
happening
tell.
to them.
Right. You can't say that there's a predator
Right.
or I'm
No
getting
one will ever
attacked.
know that, like, the kicking and screaming and raging is because there's a demon attacking them.
Right. They're just like, well,
There's
they're
something
they're
wrong with
autistic.
him. Right. They're
Right.
autistic. There's something wrong with him. He's
That's
the
normal.
problem.
That's normal behavior.
Right.
Ugh, disgusting.
And that the behavior actually does have a reason.
Hmm.
It's actually very well explained considering the amount of torture that they can endure.
Oh my God. Right. Well, it becomes so normalized and then it just escalates or well, it never gets better because there's really like no solution unless they're put on like some kind of medication, which will continue the suppression and they're just now silent.
Yeah.
It just masks,
Yeah.
which I don't know is what is worse.
Here's an interesting stat 19% higher risk of an older sibling being diagnosed, which speaks to the targeting of the bloodline. 40% have one comorbid anxiety disorder. And what is anxiety? It's usually a sign that there's a malevolent energy or entity present that is creating that fear and response from the nervous system of anxiety. It's the body's antenna. And it also speaks to the damage being done to the nervous system by heavy metals and nanotech and AI. Half have symptoms of ADHD, which I think they're now calling,
They changed it.
no, that they merged the words together.
Oh,
All DHD, which is autism and ADHD. So when you have both, um,
ADHD.
and it can create conflicting symptoms that don't really make sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Inability to focus due to being in multiple dimensions at one time, having multiple tabs open, if you will.
Oh yeah,
So,
that's
like that scattering effect of where you have all these tabs open and all these different ideas that are all coming in at the same time.
that's like sometimes I have like a lot of tabs open during sessions.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's very organized though, tabs.
And due to the toxicity of the physical body, and in some cases, trauma-based mind control, the spirit body can't ground into the physical body. So that also causes dissociation and the scattering effect, not being able to focus because you're not fully anchored and grounded into the body. It's too toxic. Like the body's too toxic to hold the energy. So it exists mostly outside of the body. And so this is where I'm saying, like in the telepathy tapes, it was expressed that some of the children didn't even know that they had bodies.
Right.
They didn't even know that they had bodies. And if they did, they needed assistance from somebody to help them ground and connect with their body, to use their hands for the communication device.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Children on the spectrum are more likely than neurotypical peers to experience sleep, GI, and weight management challenges. So 66% have disturbed sleep. What does that tell you?
Yeah. Feels
It tells you
for
that
me
they're probably under attack at night.
all the time. Like, no, I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, yeah, that happens to us too all the time.
93% have GI issues.
So what would that look like?
Irritability, GI issues, irritability, and aggression. So the gut brain connection is severed from the toxins, right? Because the gut and brain are both conduits for spirit. And if that connection is severed, it's even harder to anchor into the body. And there's a problem with connecting them, connecting the mind and the body. And if there are spirit attachments present, they're most likely to be in the gut, represented by physical parasites.
Okay.
So there are practitioners who are recovering autistic children via parasite cleansing.
Mhm.
Yeah. The parasites are defined as ropeworm, which is a synthetic biological paramagnetic organism designed to anchor AI into the body and expel the spirit.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, for overweight or obese, because the body is storing fat. These are all my opinions. The body is storing fat in an attempt to create a barrier between the self and negative entities. So, what's the easiest way to do that? Put on weight to create an actual physical barrier.
Hmm.
And they also may use food as a way to comfort self from everything that's going on. Toxins are also stored in the fat as a way to protect organs.
Yeah.
So, children with ASC also have an elevated risk of epilepsy. So, what we've seen in our work is seizures are often caused by negative entity attacks.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's almost like the same concept of like when they come in and then they leave a bit of their essence behind. Like while they're in that seizure, they're kind of in and out of the body or something is coming in. That's
Right.
what
And
I
it's
was wondering.
interfacing with the nervous system, with the brain and the nervous system, and creating that seizure. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Like what I coin is like I'm having a stroke. Am I having a seizure? That actually pinged right now for me.
Mm, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. We'll have to look at that.
Hmm. I'm so hungry.
Me too. I know you're zoning out, but we're almost done. So 90% have an atypical sensory experience, right? Sensory experiences are defined by the way the spirit interprets reality through the lens of the senses, through the central nervous system. If the senses are targeted and the nervous system is damaged, the experience will not align with that of a neurotypical human brain. Brain damage causes atypical sensory experience. They also have a heightened risk of dying from serious injury, which is exactly like the caveman that we saw in the session, the earthbound boy, because they're being targeted by dark forces. They're also twice as likely to have suicidal thoughts. Suicidal thoughts are known to be induced by negative entities. They're victims of bullying. Of course, negative entities can work through others to further gang stalk and decrease the morale of the victim. These children are basically being physically and spiritually targeted, and they have very few to no resources to assist them. Yeah. And people just see what's happening on a physical level, but we need to open our eyes and see bigger than that. Like we need to expand our awareness.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about. Don't have the conscious like awareness to even ask the right questions. They've
Yeah.
shut down so much of the energetic like sight of things that it's not even part of the conversation.
Well, no, and I think there's actually an active um, goal to suppress it. Like that teacher bringing it to the attention of the school and being fired. Like, what is that?
Yeah,
That
somebody knows something.
somebody knows something.
Which blows my mind too, because like again, when I look at people in my everyday, they have that's not even part of their thought. It's not even a thought. But then it's like it makes you wonder, like, well, who knows that? And it's just not saying anything.
Right.
That's the scary part about the things. Who's pretending like they
Who's
don't know?
pretending to not know?
Yeah, it's maddening.
Hmm.
Who's the enemy here?
Yeah.
Scary, especially if this is like a school. Who are the agents in the school who are not allowing for these children, like who want these children to suffer, who are okay on some level to allow for these children to suffer?
Yeah. Oh, so I just want to add this before we kind of close up this video. The night before we had this session with M, with the autistic child that came through,
Mhm.
she had a dream about him. So initially, when she was experiencing the past lifetime, the memory of the past lifetime, she was experiencing it as if it were hers, right? I'm
Mhm.
in the dark. I was just over the head. Now I'm dead. Now I'm out of the body. Now this entity has trapped me.
Yeah.
And then I asked the question, is this your life? or is
Mm,
it someone else's? And
smart.
that's when the visual of the dream from the night before pops into her mind. Oh my God, it's this boy, right? So, all that to say, we have to ask these questions more and more because a lot of times we assign them as our own memories when they might not be. They could
That
be
came
the,
up a few times too.
yes, it could be the memory of an attached earthbound soul or something else, and not yours at all. And number two, pay attention to your dreams and don't just brush them off as a coincidence or a dream because they're not always just dreams
Or
and they can,
meaningless.
or meaningless. They can bring you very important information. So if she didn't have that dream of the boy from the night before, we might not have ever put that piece of the puzzle together. So everything has meaning. And if you really look at your reality as like interpreting a dream, even your awake reality you can interpret as a dream. But definitely your dream space is going to give you a lot of clues as to what's happening subconsciously. So it's really helpful to start writing those things down, keep a dream journal, even if you can't remember a lot, even if you only remember a word. Sometimes I'll just wake up and I'll have a word that I remember from the dream and I'll write that word down.
Hmm.
And it might mean something later. It might not make any sense right now, but it might really mean something later, or it might contribute to a pattern. Um, so anything that you can remember, a feeling, like how are you feeling when you wake up from that dream, even if you don't have any visuals? Do you remember hearing anything? Anything at all that you can remember is important. Don't write anything off. Write it all down and keep that journal and look
Practice,
back on
practice.
it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Looking back on it is always like so revealing. Even if it's like months down the line, I'm like, oh my God, that ties to this now, or like finally it makes sense.
Yeah.
Finally, after like months or whatever, a year.
Right. Because I don't think there's any real time in the dream space.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You have to be really practiced in understanding the symbology. I love like when we talk about dreams like with our clients, that's usually like a normal thing that we do. And then it clicks. We find the connection and then they're like, oh,
You're like, oh, that was just the stupidest dream ever.
yeah, like so meaningless. And I'm like, no, no, there's a huge part there. Like, so until like you start to practice and understand the symbology behind it, it's really like profound.
It really can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so that's our miracle healing story. Hope you enjoyed that.
I did. I'm sorry.
Um,
It's not like I'm not enjoying it. Just really hungry and tired. It's been such a long day. No, but it's so interesting. Just like how everything, I find everything just ties so well together. I mean, like when you finally make sense of it and then be able to be like, okay. And I find that's really helpful. Like, I don't think that there's anything out there, any information that we experience that is not relevant. It's all relevant.
I think it helps to talk about it out loud to bring all the pieces together, because sometimes when we don't discuss it, it kind of just floats around and doesn't fully come together. So I really enjoyed like talking about that case and bringing it all together.
It's fascinating because then, yeah, it puts you in a self-reflective mode. Be like, well, fuck. What the hell, man?
Yeah.
Makes sense for some like parts of our lives that we just haven't been able to even validate, if you will.
Mhm.
It's very validating.
Mhm. Yeah. So if you guys have any questions or comments or anything that you'd like to share, please drop it down below and we'll get back to you. Um, Yeah, so I guess that's it for now. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you all next time. Thank you. Peace.
Bye.